Most everything out there is closed.
St. Mary and Elizabeth Hospital needs help.
And the mayor and the county judge have both declared a state of emergency.
The interstates are terrible.
That is our heaviest single snowfall ever.
And there is a sense of panic out there.
Welcome to a special edition of Good Morning Kentuckiana. You are looking at live pictures from the Belvedere. Kentuckiana is in the midst of a major snowstorm.
There are some cars trying to come up the 2nd Street Bridge. Folks, don't do that. Foolish, 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 foolish.
The snow extends over the entire region. Travel not advised.
Traffic is not moving, and it has not been moving here as long as we've been here.
My recommendation because of that is to stay away from the street, stay in your homes.
But you know, you scrape underneath here, it's still slippery. It's still very slippery.
You know, we may have had 6 inches of snow back in February, but this is probably the worst I've seen it in this town since 1978.
And that's the advice of the day. If you don't have a four-wheel drive vehicle, just stay at home.
And our plans today, folks, to stay on the air right through the thick of this snowstorm.
We call it the winter storm of '94, but it may turn out to be the snowstorm of the century in the Ohio Valley. It was 16 inches of snow, followed by the coldest night on record, 22 below zero. We were frozen in place. Kentuckiana was paralyzed. But the storm did more than that. It became our common denominator, affecting us all and perhaps bringing us closer together for a while. Over those 7 cold days, we at the News Channel became your eyes and ears for the storm. We managed to get to places that you couldn't see from your snowbound neighborhood. Over the next hour, we'll take you back to that snowy week with the sounds and the images that gave this week its place in Kentuckiana history.
1 a.m. The huge flakes of white snow blanket Louisville. No letting up in sight. Motorists get the bad news.
Go 64 west. You can't get up the ramp here.
And Greg Thompson from Jeffersonville is here to rescue his 17-year-old daughter stranded on I-65.
Now that you're here to rescue your daughter, you can't get back to Indiana.
That's right, so somebody's got to rescue me and my daughter.
Well, when you're lucky enough to have a garage, you kind of pull out with, I guess, wishful thinking, but it's not long before you realize you're not going very far. So there we sit, about 30 yards from the front door of my apartment. Now, the only thing we could do is get a ride from fellow photographer Todd Newman, who has a four-wheel drive vehicle. And once we hit the road, we realized we're about the only vehicle on the road.
There's about 1 foot of snow on the bridge. It hasn't been plowed. Most of the roads have not been plowed. I can attest to that. I was stuck and got picked up.
People stranded everywhere we've driven. There's a woman here trying to make a phone call just to get home. Her car is already stuck. What are you doing out in this?
Stranded, trying to get to work. Me and my brothers are trying to make it to Montfort.
Have you ever seen it like this before?
No, I haven't. Not in my 30 years of living here in Louisville.
Oh, it's bad out here. The roads are impassable. The side roads, you cannot go down and everything. And everybody's stuck. Police vehicles getting stuck, so are civilian vehicles.
But we do need to update you on the airport. Apparently, it is closed for the time being.
As you take a look at some of the snow plows out on the runways now, they're working to clear the runways, but...
All flights in and out have been canceled until 2:45.
And what about after that?
Depends on the snow. If it lets up and we can clear off the runways, maybe the 2:45 will get out.
As you see, it's a red letter day here. Canceled, canceled, canceled. Biggest problem on the main radials. You go down Market, you come in Main, you go out Liberty. The main problem are the people walking in the street.
Jeff Lifson on Broadway at about 7 o'clock in the morning. Broadway, which used to be a street, now more like a sidewalk. Because the sidewalks aren't cleared at all, because they have no way of walking any place but on the street, you see folks up in front of us trying to get to work, just like we're trying to get to work this morning.
You can see folks walking in the middle of the road. That's how a lot of folks down here are getting around this morning, just walking to wherever they have to go. And we found several people traveling several blocks.
Tell them people at home that you need to stay off the road. We cannot get these emergency vehicles on to the patients that we need to.
Probably the best vantage point to see the extent of the storm was from Sky 11. I mean, every day Terry and I would go up and it was like flying over Siberia. It was incredible to see so many roadways of such a large metropolitan area completely shut down, entire areas of the city that were just not moving, no people, no cars, no nothing.
Once I went up in Sky 11, and we started flying over the interstates and everything, and you just saw all the semis backed up and all these people just virtually stranded, you really appreciated, I guess, the wrath of Mother Nature and certainly her strong power in that storm.
Again, the big problem is on I-65 northbound, starting at the Preston Street Highway exit. Virtually a standstill with traffic, a lot of people just standing beside their cars, probably wondering what on earth they're going to do next.
There are a few people still brave enough to try and get out here and try and move around a little bit, but it's a winter wonderland out here, and the wonder is that any of these trucks even got this far. But they're not going any further. They're not going to make it to downtown Louisville today, and there's no telling when we'll get all this cleaned up. It's just going to be hours and hours and hours. It's ugly.
By late afternoon, the sunlight sprayed over the dark clouds, adding a celestial punctuation to the power of nature. On the ground below, man and machinery were frozen in place by the whims of winter weather. Pick an interstate, 64, 65, 71, and this was a microcosm. The big wheels powerless, the trucks they carry askew on the roads. And when one truck turns sideways, it blocks the road stretching for miles. No way to turn, no way to go. Power lines were down in snowbound neighborhoods all over Kentuckiana, and some broken lines were more spectacular than others. For instance, this one, found by our reporter in the air, Rachel Platt.
We've been talking about these down power lines and telling people how dangerous they are.
Let's take a look now at a graphic we have for you. LG&E is reporting 20,000 homes without power at this hour, and we suspect that the situation as it affects power to homes may get worse before it gets better.
We're in Jeffersonville right now, Gene. In fact, we're right off of 62. We had outages in Louisville, the same over on the other side of the river.
Makes you think about
Dan Penner of Seneca Gardens walked through his house in the dark all day. His one refuge, a battery-powered radio.
Up next, meteorologist Ken Schultz with the color radar forecast.
Tonight, he's hoping he'll have lights. Penner spent the day reading the newspaper by window light. At the same time, the temperature inside dropped.
But once you're inside for a while, you can feel that it gets a little nippy out, you know.
How much temperature-wise do you think it has dropped in your house since the heat went off?
Probably over 20 degrees. So it doesn't sound that bad, but I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, so they're starting to feel a little bit.
This is what took his power away. Power lines sliced and dropped to the ground, not by the snow, but by trees. Ice-covered branches are snapping everywhere.
Being without power can be a scary experience on a night like tonight.
It's a cold night without power. If you don't have electricity, this is where you could spend the night.
Straight back, straight back.
The Red Cross is rolling in goods to make Male High School feel a bit more like home instead of a shelter. The Breck family lost power earlier today and huddled under blankets until this shelter opened.
I thought, I just can't believe it's happening to us, because the kids had just started outdoors. And I thought, they got to hurry up and get back in so they don't get cold.
The effort to stay warm in this very cold weather is producing a dangerous byproduct.
We received a call on a building fire at 12:52. We had units on the scene in 3 minutes, and they reported a working fire in the Hill Street Christian Church, heavy fire conditions on the interior.
We are right now above a working apartment fire in the west end of town. We're told at 35th and Ali, just west of the Shawnee Expressway. You can see the flames coming out. It looks like a 2-story building from up here.
Look at this video. You will see the flames breaking out, and you will see a firefighter up on a roof having a tough time fighting the fire on the second floor of 1386 6th Street. Now, we should mention that there are some residents that were in the building, some that weren't.
Crackling flames, the spray of fire hoses, the thick, charred smell filling the air. The house is a loss. The wind, 6 lives saved.
The building's just lost due to the rescue and the time it took to do that. So, there ain't nothing we can do now, just put it on. That's what I was just telling you. I mean, it's vented all the way through. Everybody's out. That's the main thing.
Everybody's out thanks to a neighbor, a hero.
Mr. Rachel next door was over here before the fire trucks got here, trying to help pull some people out of the house. There are several elderly people that live there.
He jumped out of bed. In seconds, he was across the street, and he was pulling people out, yelling for help. It looked like they were getting them out safely. It didn't look, the people that had been brought out looked like they were fine.
Now the attention turns, making sure the firemen are fine.
How you feel? Fine. Two Salisbury guys going in, feed them line, make sure they're okay.
Any fire is hard to fight, and when you have conditions like this, it's just extremely difficult.
You got a ladder coming over this way? You can't hardly pull your lines, you can't walk. Everything freezes, it's unbearable. You need to rehab about every 20 minutes. But with the condition of this fire, there's a lot of guys that wasn't able to rehab. We just kept fighting and fighting and fighting.
Fighting to get the flames out, fighting to stay a step ahead of the cold, knowing their fight saved 6 lives.
It didn't surprise me, it just impressed me. Each time we would go to a live report and someone would say, this person helped me push my car, or this person shoveled my sidewalk for me, it would touch me that the number of people who would just generously give their time to help other folks in a crisis like that.
I think they really showed that sort of humanity and camaraderie and cohesion that so often people show in emergencies.
What I saw all through the whole incident was people helping people, whether it was pushing the car or shoveling out an area to save a little girl's life to get her off to an organ transplant that she needed.
If you have a 4-wheel drive and you live anywhere near the area of Pleasureville, Kentucky, there's a woman there named Mona Bush. She needs kidney dialysis by noon, needs to get to kidney dialysis by noon. Of course, it's very crucial to her life.
We called the 4-Wheel Drive Club out, which is an organization of guys and gals that have 4-wheel drives to be able to back up our emergency vehicles. Those people are in place.
One group, dubbed the 4x4 Club, has literally been the difference between life and death for some people. Donna Lazy has one volunteer story.
You lose a chain, you're stuck.
Mike Cravens can't get stuck. He's the one who's gotten people unstuck from the roadways, from their heatless homes.
Oftentimes, heroes emerge from crisis conditions, and more than 200 heroes showed up at the Southeast Christian Church today.
I was just ecstatic when we got the call, and then I said, how are we going to get there?
Today is the day Michelle Schmidt's family has waited for. For 2 years, they've looked for a liver transplant for Michelle, and today, the donor has been found. What do you think about all these people coming out to help out?
I can't believe it, and I just say thank you from the bottom of my heart. That doesn't seem to be enough, but I just want everybody to know how much we appreciate it.
It's 16 inches of snow that stands between little Michelle and the donor's liver in Omaha. The community is taking care of the snow.
I called the radio station and asked them why the helicopter couldn't land back here. And they said it would have to be plowed, and I said that would be no problem. I could get a whole street load of people to come and help plow.
There's about 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever. And the next thing you know, everybody started coming from everywhere.
The snow kicks up under the prop wash as SkyCare lands in the man-made landing pad. And the moment they've all waited for.
Perfect strangers that you're never going to see again. Just come out to help somebody they've never even laid eyes on before. It really makes you feel good.
A community of heroes, a community of good Samaritans, and a community that refused to let 16 inches of snow keep a little girl from getting a transplant she desperately needs.
Well, I guess setting 2 records in 1 week. First, the biggest snowfall, 15.9 inches officially, and then our coldest temperature a few days later, 22 below zero. Incredible.
Started out with freezing rain and sleet, and then we got 16 inches of snow on top of that. Once that all took place, we had extremely cold temperatures come down. And again, another record, the coldest temperature to ever take place in Louisville, 22 degrees below zero. So any ice underneath that snow is going to be there for a while.
The difference today, much colder temperatures.
One thing right off the bat, it's freezing. If you are going to take that chance, which I strongly suggest you don't, you've got to pack the extra things. You got to pack the blanket. You got to pack the clothes.
It feels like 30 degrees below zero right now. So extremely cold wind chill factors today. You have to dress for that if you're going to head out.
It's so cold that there's actually some ice forming on the river this morning.
Matt Coleman's got a problem. Yeah, his car's stuck. But it's cold, and that makes it a head back to the couch kind of problem.
I was in Antarctica in the Navy before, and this feels colder.
2 degrees and sunny. What a forecast. And now it's our present. Couldn't have come at a worse time. Like Steve Exley, we all had some cleaning up to do.
Just hit you like a wall. So, first time out today, so I'll probably go back in.
Go down to the banks of the river and you'll see, or sort of see through the steam, the chilliest problem. So what's the difference between the bank and the river these days? Not much. The Ohio River is in danger of freezing. You think you've seen trouble now? You haven't seen anything yet. If the river freezes, expect to see more of it on your street because freezing water from the Ohio breaks the mains, adding to the 15 already broken.
And you know, just because the snow has stopped today, it doesn't mean the roads are any better. In fact, police and disaster workers are telling us again to stay off the roads today.
The snow probably won't be as deep, but you will have slick places, ruts, cars on the side of the road that have been abandoned during the night, and generally extremely hazardous driving conditions.
Yes, we're back here, I-65. We're actually heading now north, but you're looking at the southbound lane. No, it's not gridlock. It is a parking lot. The same semis, probably in excess of 70 of them that were stranded starting yesterday. 24 hours later, they are still here.
Because yesterday was the snow day, today is the tow day.
We're asking that those that are now blocking passing lanes in the interstate, or those that are blocking the rampways, would have their vehicles removed immediately.
Everybody's willing to lend a hand. They even have the formula for the three-piece tow.
Took 2 Chevys to pull Peterbilt.
Well, that's about equal averages, right?
Pretty much.
Finally, man. I'm tired of being here.
It's great to be free again, but those still stuck are up against the clock. Move it or lose it. Your cash, that is. If the state moves your car, you pay. And that's not a popular idea with the truckers.
I don't like it because right across the road here is a National Guard with a big old record with chains on it, and they didn't even offer to help pull us out or nothing. I know there's a lot of people stuck, but we're just trying to get out.
For the state to be able to plow the expressways, they've got to clear the right-of-way. They got to clear the way to be able to get the plows through. So the cars are either going to be moved to the side, or if they're close to an off-ramp, they're going to be towed off and onto the street.
Our Chris Turner found today that the secondary roads are also somewhat of a problem, and he has that story from along the roadways.
The main roads are fine, but the back roads are real bad.
That's the bottom line for driving county roads across Kentuckiana. They're the roads off the main traveled routes, the roads with an occasional abandoned car on the shoulder and plenty of snow packed on them.
You got approximately 1 or 2 inches of ice built up, and what snow that's left on it. Other than that, you know, it's passable, but that's it. I wouldn't recommend anybody driving on the back roads.
Think of Don Wilburn's windshield as a county road.
You can see how much ice I'm having one heck of a time getting this off.
And many of the side roads require a good truck since they have not been plowed.
Four-wheel driver don't even get out.
And advice from yet another driver bears repeating.
And if you don't have to get out, if it's not an emergency, I wouldn't be getting out.
It was a convoy unlike anything you've ever seen. People saw the video from Sky 11. They saw the pictures in the newspaper. There were trucks as far as you could see.
I heard from one of the folks who actually had to go to a shelter. They were from another state, and they said the treatment was wonderful.
Shelters are filling up because of this cold weather. The Red Cross needs volunteers.
It looks like a typical day at Bullitt Central High School. It's 11:30 and everyone's crowding into the cafeteria. It's lunchtime. For the students? No, for the refugees of the storm of '94. They still wonder what hit them.
We were really shocked because we were watching cable vision, the weather, and they said it was heavy flurries, and that was it.
Heavy flurries.
Heavy flurries.
16 inches of heavy flurries, enough to shut down even Interstate 65 in Bullitt County. As many as 500 people bunked down at the Red Cross shelter.
Did you have a cot, or were you on the floor?
No, on the floor.
On the floor,
yeah.
But you did sleep.
Yeah. Kind of restless, though, you know, everybody's impatient, walking around and everything.
May I have your attention, please?
What do you do when you're stranded? You eat, you sleep, or you wait in line for the pay telephone. Why all the calls? Look at the collection of license plates. Texas, Michigan, Wisconsin, New York, Ohio, Tennessee. The list goes on. Everyone inside is thankful for the shelter. They were thankful last night
and they'll be thankful tonight when it's time to go to bed, but it isn't home, and many of the people here are afraid they might be stuck here until Thursday or even Friday. And life here, according to Carol Hopp, is
busy. Lots of people coming in all night long, but at least it was warm and a place to be.
Beats sleeping in your car, right?
I very much beat sleeping in your car. We were safe and we were off the road. That was important.
And hey, there's time to mix and mingle.
Just browse and see what's going on in Louisville.
Here's another thing that they're doing here. They're filling out these four-wheel drive vehicle request forms. This is what everyone on the phone is doing. People are calling saying they need a ride to the hospital. How can I get there?
They coordinate transportation for hospital staff according to zip code. People like Jim Dickin are lifesavers. He delivers medical staff and pizzas.
Yeah, I'm helping with the doctors and nurses in the morning, and in the afternoon I'm going into the store to see if some of the people that are working late and doing emergency service need food.
Norton Hospital is usually a busy place this time of day, but not now.
Medical supply trucks have not been able to get through, but they've got plenty of supplies for 3 days, and they're hoping on a delivery this afternoon.
And some deliveries arrive, snow or no snow.
We learned that firsthand here at the News Channel when our boss's wife went into labor early this morning, and it gave us a unique perspective on life in a maternity ward during a winter storm.
Lola, when I get my bath and my...
Welcome to the world, Haley Elizabeth. Your record chart will show you arrived weighing 7 pounds, 7.5 ounces. You are 20 inches long. And these are the other records your mom and dad will someday tell you about your arrival. 16 inches of snow on the ground. The temperatures dipped to a bitter cold, far below zero.
There are many stories. We're calling her the blizzard baby, but she's only one of I don't know how many blizzard babies.
And for each of the blizzard babies, another story of how mom and dad braved the snow and the frosty air to get you here.
We did have one that delivered in the back of a truck, and then EMS delivered a couple on the way here. So we've had several.
Nurses and doctors, emergency workers, and kind volunteers overcame the frigid obstacles to help bring you into the world.
I walked to work.
You did?
Yes, it's about a mile.
That's really dedication.
Yes, it is.
Sleep tight. Many people have worked hard to make sure you're safe tonight.
I kind of expected that the highways would be better. 64 was extremely disappointing. Boston Bruins could have had a great game out there near Cannon's Lane. It was just a solid sheet of ice.
As much ice as there was on the bottom and as tough a time as it was getting through the snow on the first day, I realized that the snowplows in this city weren't going to have any better time than I was driving in it, and I figured they were getting stuck just like we were.
Kentuckiana in the grips of a winter whiteout for the third day. These are live pictures from Sky 11 over the Kennedy Bridge at I-65. The interstate remains shut down, and the snow is keeping us caged in. Good evening. I'm Jean West. The top story tonight on the 5 o'clock news, snowed in folks and snow-covered roads. And here's what's new tonight. First, if you live in a neighborhood that hasn't been plowed and you're waiting for the city to get to you, forget it. It won't happen.
The secondary roads are not going to be scraped. They just do not have the equipment to do that. We're going to have to wait until the weather thaws it out.
Boy, now here's a familiar sight in a lot of neighborhoods. How about these buried cars? Looks like you're never going to get these things out. Now, in fact, we found a guy here, Carl Victor. He's been chipping away at his car for a few days now. Let's see how he's doing. Carl, you said you got your car dug out here, but what good is it going to do you?
Well, it's not going to do me much good at all. Once I get the thing dug out, the streets are so covered I can't go anywhere.
What have you been doing the past few days?
Watching a lot of movies, hoping that my cable wouldn't go out, because then I'd really have a problem.
You ready? Okay. Boy, you know, this whole street that we've been talking to is near a road that looks great, but good luck getting to it.
Most of us still can't get out of our driveways, and Kentucky interstates are still closed to motorists. So how bad are the roads really? Our photographer Donnie Rourke went driving this morning. Can you name this road? It's hard to tell by these pictures. This is Dutchman's Lane. It's snow-covered and it's dangerous. A few blocks over and you see the Breckenridge Lane traffic jam. Cars and trucks dodge each other to make it through this mess.
It's hard to believe these are the roads most of us travel every day. Interstate 64 looks bare.
Rush hour on I-64. 8:30 in the morning. Beautiful morning. Uh-oh, here comes one car. He doesn't supposed to be out here.
And finally, take a look at Spaghetti Junction. Does this look familiar? A stranded big rig and snow-covered car and an abandoned highway.
Despite the fact the governor has said stay off the highways, stay off so we can clear the ice, so we can get the plows going. No, I haven't seen many plows. What you can see in the distance is an 18-wheeler. That's a Kroger truck in the distance. All the supermarkets desperate for need, get more produce and more food in. And many people just simply having to get outside to try to stock up again their supplies.
The best advice, if you need those needed supplies, call ahead. Make sure you can still find the milk or the diapers or the bread or whatever you might need. At one grocery store we visited earlier today, the bread truck was a most welcome sight. The bread came back to the Kroger store today, and it didn't take long to get it from the truck to the shelves and into the checkout line. Restocking the bread was a key reason this Kroger store reopened this morning after closing early after a rush last night.
I mean, a lot of normalcy has been returned. The banks are beginning to open. Post Department is beginning to open.
The first mail since Sunday night is finally showing up in Louisville, and the lift is frozen. Jim Williams is about to deliver the first mail since Saturday. It's not all going out.
Well, I'm down from 400 and something to 33.
33 out of 400, and that's better than the others. There are 50 or more mail-carrying vehicles in this garage alone. They're not going anywhere, and here's the big reason. They're not four-wheel drive, and they're, hear that echo? They're light in the back. So they're not going to be able to get out on the roads. As a matter of fact, there was a joke going around that some of the heavier mail carriers were going to sit in the back for traction. Nobody took them up on it.
We're trying to get the mail to them. We just can't do it.
And why not?
If people would clean their driveways, that would give us a place to park anyway, a starting point. They tell us we can't get out, but yet they expect us to get out of it. So I don't know.
33 people will get their mail today.
There's your mail.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thought there wasn't going to be any.
Well,
he's a nice guy. Looks like junk mail to me.
And Jim Williams will remind you of that old neither rain nor snow nor dead of night line.
yeah, these people here have got their driveway shoveled. This is great. The 33 people that gets mail, I'm sure, appreciates it. The other people, of course, they're going to be mad because they didn't. But somebody's got to be first and somebody's got to be last. So.
But in the midst of this frozen disaster was a call for an effort to return to normal.
Many of the companies are calling in for their employees. We need to get the essential personnel to their locations.
We could tell the difference in the calls that we were getting into the newsroom. Folks were really saying, there's no reason my streets aren't cleared. I cannot believe I can't get out of my driveway, and they were angry.
I think after 4 days, everybody just wanted to get out and do something that had some semblance of being normal.
Let us head to the area that never sleeps, and that is the Snow Command Center at City Hall down in the basement, where Stephanie Collins is still keeping her finger on the pulse of things. Getting any more manic down there, Stephanie?
I tell you what, Barry, we haven't gotten the phone calls that we thought we were going to get. At 6 o'clock, I said that they were bracing for the phones to start ringing off the hooks, but it really hasn't been that bad, especially with this return to normal policy that the mayor and the county judge talked about yesterday, trying to get more people into work. That obviously means more people out on the roads.
Basically, bumper-to-bumper traffic stretching back into southern Indiana. In fact, right now, it's stretching back all the way to the Colgate-Paul Mile lift plant. That's been the case for most of the morning.
Traffic on 64, inbound, backed up, very slow.
Day 4 of the winter storm. The interstate's open, people come out of hibernation, and look what happens. Cars lined bumper to bumper. This is gridlock on Shelbyville Road. What do you think about this traffic mess?
I think people shouldn't be out. But my boss is in St. Louis, and he's chomping at the bit.
Beyond this mound, there is a mall.
but inside, virtually no customers.
Well, I think if I was the mayor, I'd have started, as soon as it started snowing, I'd have definitely had the traffic out. My state police have been out. I'd have my wreckers out, paving the roads, sanding them down, the graders.
They're not alone in their frustrations. Over at Fisher Packing this morning, the company president could only guess how much this storm will cost him.
Well, you're talking to a person that was born and raised in Sioux City, Iowa, and back there this would have been an inconvenience, but certainly not a showstopper. And we very much mystified about the fact that 2 and 3 days later, we're still not able to get people in and get people to work.
Out on the interstate, trucks were making the slow-motion dash to get out of this area. There was progress, but not much. The highways were open, if you call inching along open. Downtown, the end of the commute brought a sense of accomplishment.
I'm in from outside of Middletown, and it's taken me an hour and 40 minutes so far.
Another well-known commuter was ever the optimist. The mayor says it's getting better getting downtown.
The bottom line is they're getting in. That's the important thing. We're getting back to normal. The banks are open, the library's open. We're moving.
It is not business as usual at UPS. It is nowhere near it. Piles of packages are still waiting to be delivered. The storm cost Louisville's largest employer $65 million.
There's a Cadillac under here somewhere. Just gotta find it.
There's no business at all here at Tri-City Olds. All they can do is keep cleaning up the mess. How much has this storm cost the dealership?
Oh, it's thousands.
So who's responsible for plowing the snow off? The answer may surprise you. It's the state. So where is the state equipment? Well, that question has many answers and has many fingers pointing. Here's just a few.
And we had the county points at the state, and the state points at the county, and the county looks at the city. And I think it's just an effort that we need to reorganize and take a look at the situation, and if it happens again, be prepared for it.
Well, it's hard to say. It'll probably be a little while we look back and see what kind of a job was done. But apparently they got the main roads open, but they certainly didn't get back into the subdivisions, and a lot of the state roads didn't get plowed.
The majority of roads in this county are state roads. Now, they're making every effort, and we're assisting where we can, but we still have some 10,000 subdivision roads to clear. We still have 335 roads to maintain of our own, and there has to be even though there's a mutual aid agreement where we can, it's the state's primary responsibility to do the cleaning.
Maybe if this county wasn't paying mega bucks on that fountain out there, they could buy some snow equipment.
And the sound of the time. 4 days after we got dumped on, many of us are still waiting for nature to get rid of the stuff. What happened to you? Because we humans are having some real troubles doing it. First off, our snowplows. Some of them keep getting stuck. Have any of your other buddies or guys that are working out there running the same kind of problems?
Yeah, it happens frequently.
Some others are breaking. Oh, and did we tell you how there's some confusion about who's supposed to clear up what? Here's an example from Sky 11. Look at Dixie Highway. It's 18th Street in Louisville, Dixie Highway in the county, and 31W outside of that. Yet the county isn't supposed to clear the Dixie Highway part. The state is. Did you get that?
The thing people will always remember about this is the paralysis, is the inability to do things that everybody took for granted, like to go to the store to buy a gallon of milk, to go out to buy a newspaper. I mean, the ability to get around, which we've always taken for granted in automobiles, was just taken away from us.
We would go to a grocery store, and people didn't necessarily need food because they'd stocked up, but they just wanted to see people. They wanted to get out of their house.
You go on vacations, but then you're occupied. This was just sort of like sitting at home, watching the news channel, and trying to think, when's the next time I'm actually going to be able to do something that counts.
After 4 days, cabin fever is definitely setting in. How do you beat those snowbound blahs? You could whip up a winter storm party. What's the perfect centerpiece? How about a big bowl of smiling snow?
All the neighbors within walking distance were instructed just to bring anything to eat that they could get together without going to the store and show up.
I invited them to come look at my four walls instead of their four walls.
Got to get that blood flowing again and work off all those winter storm snacks. Everyone's got their own cabin fever cure.
Cross-country skiing is definitely the cure, especially on days like today. It was beautiful. The number want to cure those hot chocolate.
In a way, you do understand what the road crews were up against, but for things like the Oxmoor Center parking lot to have been cleared before Shelbyville Road, and that's pretty silly, and I think I can see where the criticism started right away.
But it was like, you know, I'm in the house with, I think she had 8 kids, and she's looking outside saying, you know, this stuff is going to be a while before it's gone, and she's got to deal with these kids in the house.
How about this? Snow-packed roads are melting. All interstates are now open. And the deep freeze appears to be over, at least for the time being.
After 5 days of being snowbound, Kentuckiana is finally beginning to get back on its feet. Downtown Louisville, draped in fog. The Capitol holding dome and the Humana building peek out through the wispy haze. It's a good sign, though. It means the temperatures are warming up. But this may be the best sight we've seen in many days. Clear, clean pavement.
Interstates now in Kentucky, all are at least partially open at this time.
I'm here in the 5200 block of Dixie Highway, and once again, we can say it's wide Dixie. Both lanes, 2 lanes on each side, now usable.
As far as the major interstates are concerned, I-65 looking good as you come in to the Kennedy Bridge from southern Indiana.
Southbound traffic is moving along at a good clip, again 40-45 miles an hour, and that's probably because there are 2 lanes of pavement, not ice, open.
But not everywhere. Again, Interstate 65 moves at a crawl. Many of the major streets still bumps and ruts of packed snow and ice. Neighborhood streets off Dixie Highway show very few signs of improvement. The county promises to bring plows into these areas next.
Chuck, to be honest with you, I'm very, very disgusted.
Garbage trucks actually started picking up garbage yesterday. Those trucks and fire trucks are rolling down every residential road in the city and the county. There aren't enough plows to clear every street, so these trucks are supposed to at least break up some of the snow and ice.
And it's a feat of bravery to try to get to the grocery. How are the sidewalks?
There are no sidewalks. There's just little trucks like you see through here, and it comes up about to your knees. So you just trudge out there to the street as best you can and go from the street up to wherever you're going.
Wherever you go in Kentuckiana, you'll find people trying to go. Go to work at Humana, go get a prescription at Cox's Drug. Trouble is, too much is still covered.
So bad, he said, don't go anywhere, just stay home.
One of the naval ordnance workers told us that, yeah, you can sort of see it, Brian, if you would pan in. There's a lady coming down Southside Drive, pushing a lady in a wheelchair in the middle of the road, and my goodness, I would imagine they have somewhere urgent to get, but that's got to be awfully dangerous. Look at that truck going around her. She's like in the middle of the road. This street is not that wide. It's just wide enough for 2 lanes of traffic to go back and forth, and here we have a lady pushing another lady in a wheelchair down Southside Drive.
Just how hard everybody was working, and not just in our newsroom, but everywhere we went. It was like, I felt like we were working hard, but then I'd go out and I'd see the firefighters, you know, or you'd see the hospital folks trying to get into work, or you'd see even the people just at home working to get to the streets, just trying to get out.
You get the sense oftentimes that people don't care. But the fact of the matter is, when the dukes are down, people will come out and do the best that they can for others, give up their service. And it feels great, you know? It feels great to know that people will do that for you.
We talked to a lot of people by, I guess, Wednesday or Thursday who talked about cabin fever. They talked about, I gotta get out, I can't wait to get out. Well, I think all of us who worked through the storm, especially the first couple of days when we worked around the clock, were thinking how nice it would be to suffer from cabin fever.
Fatigue. It happens to all of us, especially after 5 days of getting others back on their feet.
Hi, how are you?
The mayor's keeping an eye on it. He's checking in with workers at the Red Cross and the volunteers.
How you doing? Everything going well?
It's going well. It's time for a pat on the back.
I tell you, you guys have done a tremendous job. A tremendous job.
Jesse's department. These workers have been hard at it, trying to get the blood supply out of the critical stage, and the exhaustion is catching up with them.
Just a little bit, but like I said, that's part of the job, and I think that's come to be expected. I mean, I knew when I took the job that it's going to be long hours. And
workers tend to get caught up in their duties.
they have a tendency not to recognize when they're getting stressed, when they're getting tired, and so you really have to depend on your coworkers. And
How you feel?
Fine. The fire department makes their people take breaks every 20 minutes.
Any fire is hard to fight, and when you have conditions like this, it's just extremely difficult.
It's catching up with MSD workers, too.
I'm getting a little tired, but we're going to be here. We're going to make it.
The EMTs are working long hours. They sleep on cots at the office if they're one of the first 3 back. Otherwise, it's the floor.
Something you want to be prepared for tomorrow, a madhouse at the Kentucky Fair and Exposition Center. This is a picture from Sky 11. It's captured today of clouds clearing the fairgrounds parking lot today, getting ready for tomorrow. What's tomorrow? Well, both the U of L game against Southern Mississippi and the Sport Boat and Vacation Show.
You have been snowbound for days, and tomorrow you might head for the grocery store for the first time. Will the shelves be stocked or empty?
And Biggs, like many Kentuckiana groceries, says it'll be stocked on the basics this weekend. No more empty shelves of bread or the eggs. Yes, it'll be a little easier to find that elusive gallon of milk at the store this weekend, but maybe with some restrictions. Like at Biggs here, for example, look at the sign. Limits milk purchases to 3 gallons per customer. And it could be a record Saturday at this store.
They've been stuck in the house for like, what, 3 or 4 days now, so I think they'll be anxious to get out and get some food.
It dawned on us later, at least in the middle of the week, how everlasting this was going to be because of those freezing temperatures we had in the town. They weren't going to, that the snow wasn't going to melt for a very long time.
Sunrise Saturday morning, the meltdown begins. But even the warmer temperatures don't eliminate dangerous driving conditions. Fortunately, no one suffers serious injuries, and an hour later, traffic's moving again. Around the rest of Kentuckiana, life starts to return to normal. UPS pilots line up for liftoff, eager to be airborne after a tough week on the ground. Meanwhile, tugboats chug up the Ohio in balmy 20-degree weather. Barges cut through surface ice and memories of sub-zero temperatures. In the suburbs, folks pull out their snowblowers, dig out their cars. After all, it's Saturday. Time to go shopping.
We went to a grocery store today. We went to a mall, and it seems that people are just trying to get back to a normal routine.
Grocery shopping. Maybe we took it for granted before the winter storm. Now, the produce section is a fruit and vegetable oasis for those of us shut in by the snow. Even people who planned ahead were running low.
We go shopping every Saturday, and we go through at least 8 gallons of milk every week and a couple loaves of bread. And I had stocked up on Saturday, thank goodness, because, you know, we don't shop on Sunday, and Monday couldn't anyway. So we were lucky.
Earlier this week, you were lucky if you found some bread. Now the loaves are lined up, and today, Biggs lifted the limit they put on gallons of milk.
It's pretty much a free-for-all. Business is back to normal throughout the whole store.
At River Falls Mall, business tries to get back to normal. Merchants took a hit with the loss of customers, but things were looking up this weekend.
Wednesday and Thursday was pretty slow. Got busy last night. I guess everybody had cabin fever and needed to get out.
We needed to get out, to the store, anywhere.
Oh, feels good. Yeah, we're thinking about going to the movies this afternoon.
I guess we wondered just how, when you went into a subdivision, that road could be that bad, but the road leading into the subdivision was perfectly clear. And then in one section of town, the roads are fine. You go to another section, the roads are bad.
This is how you know the worst is over. You can turn off Breckenridge Lane to streets like Yorkshire, Berkshire Avenue, where people are finally emerging again.
What I'm trying to do is here just clear out a little path here for the ice to melt down.
This winter, we didn't start it to make sure it worked, and it snowed. Whenever we started the daggone thing, it wouldn't snow, all right?
Her first sleigh arrived, and her boots are falling off. I have not seen one plow go through here.
Down the road a piece, around Nation Drive in the county, Larry Clark could use a plow about now.
I hadn't seen anything like this since '86.
or what was it, 76, or 78, whatever it is. I've been out here so long, I'm delirious.
In fact, many neighbors around here got tired of waiting for the county and simply hired their own team. So you're getting, what, 30 bucks a driveway? You did the road, too?
Yeah, we did this road through here and this side road through here.
Figured I'd better keep these guys' numbers in case spring comes late.
I think people will remember just the sheer amount of snow, just the pictures of snow piled up. I think they will remember the pictures of cars stuck, just stranded.
I expected that the kids in Jefferson County would be back to school on Monday. Yeah, I was a little bit surprised. I can only guess that it was because some of the side streets, people had yet to see a plow.
John Asbury shoveled his snow and thought of his sons playing in the snow nearby. Despite the big thaw this weekend, he says they should still stay home from school tomorrow.
I don't mind walking in this. I mean, not that far. I don't want to walk in it.
Because the snow is too deep.
Now, Rex Asbury and his brother walk to school. Of course, Rex wants another day off, but his dad shares his worries with plenty of other parents in Jefferson County, whether their kids walk to school or ride the bus. They wonder, will the side streets be safe for buses to travel? Many of them are still snowy and slushy, and you'll find some parked or abandoned cars in the way, too.
Still slick. I wouldn't, you know, it's, you got to take it slow and easy, and definitely have a shovel.
And drive by the Jefferson County school bus compound, and you'll see hundreds of buses parked since last Monday. The windshields now are clear, and the snow melts from the roof and drips onto the parking lot.
But melting snow for homeowners and apartment dwellers is becoming a nightmare because there are leaky ceilings, leaky roofs across Kentuckiana. And if you think you're having trouble, wait until you meet the people that we met today at one apartment complex in Jefferson County. It's called Lake in the Woods Apartments, but residents joke it should be renamed Leak in the Woods. There are so many leaks that the ceilings have fallen in 71 apartments.
And any ceiling can come down on anybody in the middle of the night. We've got children, got toddlers, babies who don't have enough common sense to know not to run under these ceilings that are falling down.
Elena Tedesco moved her furniture, but it's been damaged anyway. In one apartment, so much ceiling has fallen, you can see the sky through a vent. The melting snow has frozen over windows, and it's leaked out of sockets, leaving many without power and leaving many with a mess.
It's been a tough week for all of us, but they've been really roughing it in Bullitt County. Thousands were without power and hundreds slept in shelters. Now, as the thaw begins, many are thanking God and one another. And as Mark Hebert reports, churchgoers are hoping the neighbor helping neighbor attitude carries on.
I see you made it.
Yeah, I made
it. Yes. Hi, guys. How are you? My wife's had cabin fever. She's cleaned out everything, driven me crazy. She's like a worm in hot ashes.
Cabin fever also got the best of these churchgoers, many of whom shed their coats outside their own homes for the first time in a week. Some wore their snow clothes, others their Sunday finest.
Hi, guys. How are you?
They come to trade stories, give thanks that the power is back on, and pray that nobody in Bullitt County will freeze to death.
There are still those who suffer from the inconvenience and problems of this weather, and we ask you to bless them and help them to endure. We pray for the thaw that appears to be on its way.
The past week tested Bullitt Countyans. After all that snow and ice, they brought food and manned the shelter for hundreds of stranded I-65 motorists, and they helped their neighbors in need.
There have been people that have been rescued and cared for, and we praise God not only for that, but we praise you for that as well.
The service ends with a song praising their God, hymn number 185. That's right, whiter than snow. Others who are in sanctuaries near and far are undoubtedly singing the praises of Bullitt Countyans.
brought out the goodness in people because everybody's been pitching in to help everybody else.
People that don't even know each other, wouldn't even speak to each other, and other times are willing to get out and help each other for people they don't even know. And I think that's a real good thing. I wish we could kind of carry that spirit over to the good times when it's good weather.
The good Lord tested the faith of Bullitt Countyans last week, and they responded by lending helping hands to folks who were stranded on the interstate, and maybe learning a little bit about themselves in the process.
And if you could sit back and relax last week, having a good time was possible, and so they saw that end of it. We saw the work end of it, but the kids really did have a good time.
For some reason, people just let go, and they find the humor in it all. They say, yes, we're in a major catastrophe, but there's some fun I can have in it, whether it's sledding down a hill, throwing a snowball on an unsuspecting person, or lending a helping hand and kind of getting a kick out of that.
He is a man alone on an island. An island of ice and snow.
Got him that time. He ain't that big. A little feller. I usually throw one size back, but you'll find his way back in there in a minute.
Steve Eckert stands in the middle of his sister's pond just off Grant Line Road outside of New Albany.
That's a good bait, you know, if you're a bluegill fisherman up through the spring while the water's cold.
He is an avid hunter and fisherman, but it's the first time he's ice fished in 5 years.
I'm catching a lot of little ones today. I got a few back here.
First time in 5 years it's gotten cold enough for the ice to hold him.
I like to get in some of them big bluegill I caught yesterday.
Eckert fished all week long, even on those frigid days. Took his ice auger and made himself a hole. Figured since I was out here, I'd have Steve teach me a little bit about this sport. How am I doing so far?
Oh, you're doing fine.
You know, I figure if somebody would come out and drill holes for me like Steve did, and I could just kind of show up, not have to carry any equipment and leave when I get ready, I could get into this sport a little bit.
The Ohio River is almost frozen across. A beautiful sight for most, a challenge for Charlie Fort. A snap of the coat, his pack from the trunk, and the ice skater's equivalent of a life preserver.
It's an ice awl.
A pick meant to pull him from the icy water should he fall in. If you haven't figured it out yet, Charlie's going skating.
I suppose you do it because it's there and it's a challenge.
He glides away from the dock, the frozen field crackling as he goes. The ice talks to him.
Ice is like a rattlesnake. When it's too thin, it will crack, and in other words, be telling you, don't tread on me. To me, it is a wilderness. And I love being on a big ice field. It's a challenge. It's beautiful out there. I was trying to show off, and you notice I fell down, too.
He doesn't mind falling down, it's falling in he wants to avoid.
I don't like cold baths in the wintertime.
As Charlie makes his way back, he revels in his accomplishment.
But you notice that the thousands of skaters that you have in Louisville, only Charlie Fort seems to be out on the Ohio River.
He hopes he remains the only one to skate the Ohio. He admits it's not safe, but since he was prepared and stayed dry, chalk up another conquered frontier for Charlie Fort.
Well, for most of us, the ice and snow have been major hassles, and more than a few of us are getting crabby about the inconveniences. Then there's Jeff Wilson. His art imitates our lives. Ice and snow everywhere we go, especially on the cars.
I decided to knock the icicles off the house and just decided to have a little fun with it. Everyone's mad about the weather, depressed about it. I'm a happy guy.
This happy guy from St. Matthews even got the icicles from his neighbors' homes to decorate the car that his friends call a boat.
So does it do okay? Oh, I've got 400 pounds of sand in the back, haven't been stuck yet, knock on wood, or I guess I should say knock on ice.
And until the sun melts it away, Jeff and his car art will be turning heads wherever they travel.
Through the storm of '94, we were almost constant companions. Some people tell us they watched the news channel non-stop, their only contact with the outside world for a while. After the week, most of us were tired, but proud that we had been a vital information link to you. And we lived it with you, the bad roads, the difficulty getting to and from work. It stretched our equipment and people and abilities like never before. And so, like you, the winter storm of 1994 is something we will never forget.
We're heading into our 7th hour covering this historic winter storm of '94.
15.9 inches of snow.
More about the traffic here on 65.
You can see the flames coming out. It looks like a 2-story building. 24 hours into the snowstorm.
2 below zero.
Today, it's just about as bad as it was yesterday.
Whoa, boy, it is cold out here. Now, right now, of course, the big news is the weather. But how WHAS News has brought you this information is a story all in itself.
Mark Hebert's been out live all morning long. I'm sure he's pretty cold by now.
At 12 o'clock this afternoon, as the wind chill dipped well below zero, you got WHAS reporter Mark Hebert and his icy mustache reporting on the conditions along Highway 71. But the story doesn't end here. It just begins.
And the adrenaline keeps flowing all day long until you finally hit the wall about 8 o'clock at night.
This is kind of a cross between thrill-seeking and stupidity. You know, you come out here for 17 hours, you stay outside all day long.
For the past 2 days, news photographers and reporters have been trudging through the snow and ice, flying high above it all without heat, and spending day and night tracking the storm of '94.
Pretzels and Cokes for breakfast on the road this morning. It was delicious.
Mark and Brian aren't the only ones living on junk food. Back at WHAS, while the anchors, producers, and editors haven't had to brave the cold, they have been fighting off the clock. Most won't get a break till the snow begins to thaw.
I just want to know how many hours you think you've worked.
Good Lord, since Sunday,
This is the single most longest time that I've ever been on the air. I know for the station, for a news event.
oh, it's hard to calculate.
Well, I know that I worked about 14.
And I was in here before noon on Sunday, and
15, 16 hours, something like that.
and then, of course, I was here all day yesterday.
And this is part of what you buy into when you get into the business of news and broadcasting.
If you can calculate all that, it's a long, long time.
But you look fabulous.
Oh, well, thank you. It's makeup.
Editor Roger Say was one of many WHAS staffers who found the only way to get to work was to walk.
I was one of the few people out on the street of Broadway around 4:30 yesterday morning.
All remotes, be advised, the state...
And all of the commotion of the storm of '94 was enough to bring a baby to the WHAS newsroom. This afternoon, news director Mike Roush and his wife Sarah became the proud parents of a baby girl. So, as always, the news must go on. Just ask Mark Hebert. I'm sure he's still out there.
1 lane open on 71, 64.
I had never actually seen that much snow falling at one time, and it was beautiful. And then I realized that I was trapped. I couldn't go anywhere.
Got a phone call. At the time, 14 inches of snow on the ground. I laughed. You must be joking. 14 inches. Was my reaction when I looked out the window. I could not, out the front door of my home, I could not see my car.
I'll never forget the way I found out. My husband woke me up that morning and he said, "We have 10 inches of snow on the ground. You're not going anywhere." And I said, "Oh, you're teasing. You know, this can't be true. It's not true." And we never get 10 inches of snow.
For a meteorologist, of course, it's a rush of adrenaline because you're dealing with something big. I mean, this was our biggest snowstorm ever, so I wanted to be here for all the action, and sure, I put in a lot of hours, but it was pretty exciting to follow the snow event and then that Arctic air coming in.
Getting up and realizing that we were in for something really big and trying to get my car out, and after working on it for about a half an hour, giving up and putting on warmer boots, warmer gloves, and trucking up Eastern Parkway and flagging down a four-wheel drive vehicle and hitchhiking into work.
Well, the first night after the storm hit, we were all trapped downtown and stayed at a hotel. And I shared a room with one of our reporters, Chris Turner. And I woke up in the middle of the night, and Chris was still doing live shots in his sleep, doing snow reports. I thought, boy, this guy is dedicated.
I spent the night Sunday night before it hit. I was in the same clothes Tuesday, still working here at the station and didn't make it home yet. I've never really been in the same clothes for 3 days in a row, and that's going to stick in my mind for quite a while.
I don't think I've ever been so cold in my entire life. I can remember being up for hours at a time and not having any feeling in my nose and my fingers and my toes. That was what was incredible.
The people who live upstairs, their pipes had frozen and all the water had drained down over my front door. So I walk in my front door and it's a sheet of ice. It's covered with ice. I have to kick it open to get in my apartment. And then when I'm leaving, I have to slam it shut to get it to close, and I end up with the door handle in my hand.
Our heater was broke, and our very diligent helicopter pilots had overnighted a heater part into Louisville. However, due to the snowstorm, UPS couldn't deliver it. So we were like 4 days with no heater, over 1,000 feet up in the air, and it was something to be remembered for some time to come.
I have to say, Vaughn, the cheeseburger man, that's the guy I've gotten the most comments about. This guy over at the bus station the first day, he's about the only person who's doing anything downtown, and he's certainly one of the only people who's open for business and for lunch. He made like 350 to 400 cheeseburgers that day, and we asked him, hey, Vaughn, what if somebody wants a tuna fish sandwich? He's like, oh, no, man, just cheeseburgers. You got to keep it simple. Got to keep it simple.
Tooling along 4:30 Monday morning when the snow was coming down real bad, and all of a sudden, there's a van spun out in front of me, and I have to stop the 1991 Taurus, and I can't get out.
My most vivid memory is coming home like Tuesday night, the day it went 21 below. There was no heat. Furnace motor went out. And then the next day, the pipes burst. And of course, you know how it's going. You can't get a plumber, can't buy a plumber. Tried to entice some plumbers while we were doing reports the next day. No luck, But that's all right, I got it fixed. Took a few days. Wife and kids left home.
Most everything out there is closed.
St. Mary and Elizabeth Hospital needs help, and the mayor and the county judge have both declared a state of emergency. The interstates are terrible.
That is our heaviest single snowfall ever.
And there is a sense of panic out there.
Dear WHAS 11, every one of you deserves jewels in your crowns. The coverage was excellent.
Journalism doesn't get any better.
You did a most wonderful job. Every one of you has given more than 100% to bring us the details.
Your station was the only one that kept us continually updated throughout this tremendous ordeal.
To all who called or wrote, thanks. Thanks for knowing who to turn to for coverage of the winter storm of 1994. Kentuckiana's news channel, WHAS 11.